Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masechtas Menachot daf Pei Gimel. We are going to begin on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the top, with the word chatos. So we've been discussing how do we know that when it comes to karbonos chova, that it's necessary that the money that you use must be chulin money and not meiser money. So we already established this according to one opinion. Then we learned it out from Pesach Mitzrayim. According to Rabbi Kiva, he said it's problematic because that's a case of efshar. The fact that it was able to looked upon in the time of Mitzrayim that they only used chulin money is because there was no meiser sheni. It didn't exist because we haven't gone to Canaan. We didn't get to Israel yet. So how can you learn that out with Doros? So instead we quoted this pasuk. And this pasuk, which says Zosa Torah, so he said all the different karbonos mentioned teaches a chiddush. So we did an ola, is to tell us that just like a carbon ola, you need to use a knife for the shechita. You can't do malika. So too when it comes to other karbonos. And we just learned at the end of yesterday's daf, mincha is coming to tell you that when it comes to a mincha, it has to be eaten only by a male kohen, zichri kahuna, wafukin women. And then the pasuk says chatos. So why does it say chatos? We learn ma chatos mikachi bibuloya av koil mikachi bibuloya. That just like when it comes to a carbon chatos, and let's say there is a carbon, two different carbonos, and the taste gets absorbed into one of them, that we say it takes upon itself the stringencies of the more chomer of the carbonos, so it comes to any other carbon, just like the din of achata. Says Rashi, "T'chsib kosher yiga b'sor yikdosh." The Arminan, we learn over there in Masechtas Zvachim. Remember that not too long ago. It says ad sheyivla b'sor going shayishtei chatichos. They have two pieces of meat. Achas shlom v'achas shel basar chatos. The nafol min chatos al shlomim. So you have it fell these two carbonos onto each other. V'nivla ba yoichel kachaymer shaba well yom b'layel kachatos. So even though shlomim you have more time to eat, achatas you only have a day and a night. The din is we go strict. So too when it comes to any other carbonos, they always have to take upon itself the stringent law if it absorbs. And then the pasuk says asham. So we say ma asham in shafir v'shalya kadosh boy avkol in shafir v'shalya kadosh bo. That when it comes to a carbon asham, the fetus in the amniotic sac do not become sanctified. So too when it comes to any other carbon, namely while in the mother's amniotic sac or stomach, so it doesn't take upon itself kedusha until after it is until it's born. Now, and we learn out from here ksavar vlados kodshim b'havyosin hein kedoshin, that when it comes to the offspring of kodshim, they are not considered to be halachically kodesh while they're in the mother's body, but rather only once they're born. V'dan an efsher mishi efsher. And here we do, or an efsher from mishi efsher. So what is it? What is efsher? We learn out from an asham that we know an asham has to be a zachar. There is obviously no shilya. Maybe in the year 2026 people disagree with this, but a carbon asham which must be a zachar, which obviously there is no such possibility of an uber, and therefore there's no shvir, there's no shilya. Nonetheless, we can learn out from there that so too when it comes to things which are efsher, namely nekeva, nonetheless the din is that the animal is only kadosh only at birth. What do we know from Miluyim? So ma Miluyim moistrein besreifa. So ve'ein bali chayim moistrein besreifa. Avkol moistrein besreifa ve'ein bali chayim moistrein besreifa. So when it comes to a Miluyim, we said that the leftover meat is burned. However, in bali chayim moistrein besreifa. Not if it's bali chayim. Look at Rashi. So Rashi says like this. So dechsiv im yosar bebasar hamulim, if there was extra ad habakar b'saraftas hanoiser b'esh, so then it has to be burned. Vein moistrein bali chayim b'sreifa. the meluyim lo hifrishu shum behema lachrayis. So it's not possible that the animal is alive. Because what does it mean? Why would the animal be alive? So let's say you have two karbonos just in case. You have one just in case the other one gets lost or stolen, let's say. So therefore then you'll have a second one, which is called achrayas, which means it's bal chayim. It would be extra if, let's say, the first one was sacrificed. So he says that even though it's true by the meluyim, this is not something which took place, because by meluyim we never separated a separate animal for achrayas. This one-time, this one-off case of during the inauguration time. Nonetheless, we can learn out that when it comes to this animal that's left over, we're not going to burn it, but rather we're going to let it graze. Okay. That's what Rashi says. El yira ad shitztalim until it gets a mo. Shlomim. So why does it say shlomim in the pasuk? Shlomim mefalgan mispalgan avkol mefalgan mispaglin. So it's only something which has the two elements. For example, a toda has the ability to, if it was done shalol lishma, so there's an issue of pigel. But pigel is only when you have two things. You have, for example, the dam, which is the mater, and the basar, which is the item in which is becoming mater through the dam. That's what it's come to tell you. And that is therefore coming to exclude, if you look in Rashi, im chishi behen de ikar pigel de shlomim ksiv avkol mafalgan kigoin zivchi shel mitzim or mafalganis shtei halechem. So then it would work, but only if the pigel, it's only pigel if there's a mater, but not if there isn't a mater. Let's see if maybe the bottom parts of Rashi over here has a different, adds a little bit over here. So it says over here, Shalom etzinu sreifa b'meluyim el b'basu achar shchita av kol karbono, same thing. Okay. Vein b'alichan moiser b'sreifa. Okay, which we said could go in im hifr shnei karbonos achrayis. Okay, so we did that. So hashlomim afagim nesachim av koil lahachi gomer mishlom the ikar pigel b'shlomim ksiv. But again, it's come to exclude a situation where there is no, it doesn't explain, but a case where there is no mater. If there's a situation where there is no mater, so then there's not going to be din pigel. I've called mafagim espalgan. So according to Rabbi Akiva, he makes the following drush regarding a mincha. Ma mincha mikadeshes beveloa. So av koyel mikadeshes beveloa. So interestingly enough, Rabbi Akiva doesn't learn out from chatos that when things absorb, it takes upon itself the stronger din, but rather by mincha. The truth is, this notion of absorption and then taking upon itself the stronger din is necessary by a karban chatas and by a mincha. Why? Because it's soft flour, which could cause things to absorb easily. When it comes to meat, maybe it's not going to absorb just because they're touching one another, so the dinim don't apply. Because it mentions the case of meat, mishum the basar agav the shimin kadir, because it's like fatty, then it can help it absorb. Okay, so chatas, ma chatas eno ba'al menachulin. So when it comes, what does he want out from the word chatas? And this is, we're getting back to what we were trying to get to originally. How do we know that when it comes to karbonos, it has to come from chulin? So ma chatas eno ba'al menachulin. So we learned out, actually, one drasha was learned out from Karban Pesach, this only comes from Cholon. Here we see a chatas can only come from Cholon money. Uva yoim. Also, it can only be brought during the day. Uva yadai hayimanis. And also, because it's an avoda, you have to use your right hand, as it's brought down over here. Dechsev etzba v'kahuna, right? It says the word etzba and kahuna. We learn out that it says later on, but we learned v'amrinu kaman kol makam shnemer etzba v'kahuna. Then you require the etzba himanis, and it says actually prepare kama. Okay, so I'm not sure where it says kaman. Anyway, so Those are the dinim of a carbon chatos, that it has to be has to come from chulin, has to be done during the day, and you have to use your right hand. So I've called in a boil of a chulin of a yom of yadahimanis. So chatos gumin on. So like we asked by the Shlomim, by the carbon pesach, how do we know by carbon chatos that that's the din, that it has to be comes from chulin? So Rav Chisdi and Makra, the hikr of Aaron's par hachatos esheloi. So it says that Aaron will bring the carbon which is his. It says asher lo. So lo mishal lo mishal meiser. So we see clearly it has to come from him. B'yoyim. So the fact that the carbon chatos has to come from the day, so maybe yom savasa nafka. We already know that. So it's kedei. You're right. It's true. We don't really need that. Diod hiyamanis. Diod hiyamanis has to be with the right hand. So mid the Rabbi Barachana nafka. Never Barachana Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shlokish. This is the luck. Come on, right here. Kol makam shenever etzma v'kahuna. That the pasuk says etzma no kahuna and el yimin. So we already know this. So what is he coming to tell you? So kedei nitzma, again, it's not necessary. The whole chiddush over here is that when it comes to chatos, it has to come from your own money. Okay, let's slow down and look at question TA2. Let's see. TA2. Maha marker shechatas einu ba'el menachulin libed Rabbi Kiva the lo yov mepesach. Okay, so because you could just answer, well, you learns out from Pesach to all karbanos, but that's not what we're looking over here. The answer is, it says v'hikriv Aaron as parachatos esheloi mishlomo mishel meiser. So that's TA2, pretty clean. Question TB5. Maha marker shechatas einu ba'el menachulin. See, I wrote mekarmen chatas shel Aharon hakoyin. Kiksiv shalo mishalo, doesn't really say, it doesn't say shilo, it says lo, so it's mishalo. Okay, I'm sure they gave me credit for that. It's Pei Gimel Mid Aleph. That's TB 5. Okay, and TC 29. Mamlim in Balichayim Moisrein Besreifa, Kol in Balichayim Moisrein Besreifa. Al Eza Oifen Moiser Laman Mikan Sheeno Nisraf. What does that mean, Moiser? So I got this wrong. So it means if it's Lachrayas, right? Hifrish, let me see. Shtei karbanos. Ve'echad lachrayis. V'hu adayin chai. Something like that. I got that question madly wrong, unfortunately. That's TC29. Okay. TC29 is, let's just find this, Shlomim, so Meluyim, Moisrein Besreifa, Vein Balichai Moisrein Besreifa, Kol Moisrein Besreifa, Balichai Moisrein Besreifa, that's TC29, and let's see, let's put this over here, TC29, let's put this down here. TC29 over there. Kigoinim Hifrishne Carbonos Lachrayas. I have to write that Lachrayas. Okay. All right. So that's that. Okay. TC29. Okay. Just do it that way. All right. So I got a question wrong. What am I supposed to do? All right. Weiter. So Asham, what does he want from the Asham? Ma Asham atzmaisav mutarin avkoil atzmaisav mutarin. So just like when it comes to an Asham, the bones are mutter. Shahari says Rashi Shari Basaro mutter. The meat is mutter. V'loksiv Asham elamishum deboil lafrushi kra kol chad v'chad memdi atzmo. You need to explain each one. V'huadin shafilu shar zvachim atzmaisav mutarin. We already know that the bones are mutter. Quotes more in Pesachim over here. About somos v'ginim yisrafu l'shisha asar, that you burn the bones. If we know that if there's no marrow in it, in other words, it's just like a dry bone, l'shdinhu, just toss it. Alma de'atzamos mutarin. We certainly know that it's mutar. So too, avkoil afil oil atzmoisa mutarin. So too, even when it comes to a carbon, oil is the chiddush that it's supposed to be burnt up, but the bones are mutar. Afil barosham mizbeach yardu. That even if they're on the top of the mizbeach, you can still remove them. V'sharina nafilu likatata de sakini. You can use it like for a key or something like that. Okay. Anyway. Rabbi Kiva, Haivazavachta Pesach, this whole notion about Karban Pesach, which he had problems learning out from it for a couple of reasons. So, Ma'yavinli, what does he do with that pasuk? He can't. So we said, well, maybe it's come to tell you that just like the Karban Pesach can only come from Chulin, so to all Karbanos only come from Chulin. But he doesn't learn that because he says, ain't done an Efsher Mashi Efsher. Because, of course, it had to come from Chulin. There was no such thing as Meiser Sheni. So what does he do with that pasuk? Look at Rav Nachman. Dear Rav Nachman, Rav Ravua, Vanayin l'meiser haPesach shekar v'shlomim. How do we know that if you have extra monies of the Karban Pesach, says Rashi, Kagayin shehefresh mois l'pischai. For example, you designated money for Karban Pesach, and then you just happen to have extra money. So in that situation, and it says V'hainu moiser Pesach in acher shehefresh pischai of avad. For example, as we saw before, you designated for a carbon, it got lost, and then you did another one, and then you found the original one. So now because of that, it's Moiser Pesach. So how do we know that you have two carbonos? You only needed one, but you lost one, so therefore you got the other one. So we said that it could be used as a shlomim. Shenemer, and we know a Karban Pesach in general, outside of the parameter of the time of Pesach, is considered to be a shlomim. Shenemer zavata Pesach hashem kechosayin bakar. Avol ein Pesach haben menakavasim izim. So why does it say bakar? There's no such thing as a bakar when it comes to Karban Pesach. Oh, Moiser HaPesach means the leftovers of the Karban Pesach. You can also purchase a bakar with it, which means it will be a shlomim. So, we'll just stop there for a second. Let's finish the parak. The halacha nafka is that true. We went out from over there. We had a word of shmul nafka. I thought we went out from a different pasuk. Except the pasuk says, "Imin hatzayin karbanoi." If from sheep is your carbon was zevach shlomim. So the Amar Avu the Shmuel, he says, "Davar haba min hatzayin." Something which can come from a tzayin, namely a Karban Pesach, nehil is vach shlomim. That sometimes can be used as a shlomim. So we see that this is how we learn out that a Karban Pesach, or at least the Moiser Karban Pesach, is a shlomim. So we don't need this other pasuk. We already have a second pasuk. V'yakati mahacha nafka, mahaskim nafka. You tell me there's two, there's three. That teaches the same thing, that there's a din that the Moiser Pesach can be used as a shlom. L'sanya keves, or Rabbi says a Pesach. La'aliyah come to tell you that when it comes to the Karban Pesach, the tail is also burnt. Kishu aimer im keves, when it mentions the word im, extra is l'havi Pesach she'aver shenasai. It's come to tell you that when it comes to a Karban Pesach in which its time has passed, because the carbon has to be less than a year old for it to be a Karban Pesach. So if it's over shenasai, that's what it's coming to include. The shlomim haboyim machmas Pesach, as well as the Karban Shlomim, which comes because of a Karban Pesach, right, which is like the Karban Chagiga, but kol mitzvos Shlomim, when it comes to the dinim of a Shlomim, sheyitunu smicha, that you have to do smicha on the animal, like any Karban Yachid, you do smicha on the animal, but a sachim, there's libations, of a tenuvos, chaz v'shok, and you wave the sacrificial parts. Shu'aymer, the im eiz, hifzach inyan, limit al eiz, she'enu te'una alya. So when it comes to the goat, it comes to tell you that you do not need to burn the tail on the mizbeach. So anyway, we have a kasha. We actually have three psukim now to teach us the same thing regarding Karban Pesach. So the truth is, the reason why there's three psukim is because each one is necessary to tell you that it does not have to. It's not used for a Pesach anymore, but rather these three psukim, the Moiser Pesach is a shlomim chaj l'avra zmanoi v'avra shenasai. Let's say Pesach is finished and it's already past a year old. So if it's already past a year old, it cannot be used as a Karban Pesach, so it's a shlomim. V'chad l'avra zmanoi v'avra shenasai. Let's say the time has passed. Let's say Pesach is finished. However, it's not you could still technically use it maybe for Pesach Sheni, right? And the year hasn't passed yet. It's still less than a year old, so therefore you could still use it. But we say no, that's also considered shalom. Let's say you have Meiser Pesach and it's before Pesach, and which means that it hasn't passed the time of bringing the first Karban Pesach, and also hasn't passed the age of the requirement for it to be less than a year old. That is like totally off. So mishum it's totally pushed off. The animal's over a year old. You can't use it for a Karban Pesach, obviously. So maybe only there you can use it as shlomim. However, let's say Pesach Rishon finished, but it's still less than a year old. So we say the Chazal Pesach Sheni below. The fact is, it still could be used as a Karban Pesach for Pesach Sheni. We say no, it's a shlomim. V'yashmin and over zmanavu over shanaso the idchil Pesach Rishon. At least the reason why it's a shlomim is because the original Pesach, the first Pesach, is gone. So avu lo over zmanavu over shanaso the Pesach Rishon nami chazi. It's fit for right now. Let's say it's like a few days before Pesach. You can still use it for Pesach. So emelo, you think maybe it's not a shlomim. Sricha, even in that case, it will be a shlomim. Okay, hadoch hatayda haisabah hadoch. And let's look at question 9. So what do we learn out from Bakar? So one is to tell us that just like Karban Pesach, it can only come from Chul, and so to all Karbanos. Or it's going to tell you, Rabbi Akiva, that Meiser Pesach is a Shlomim. Okay? Possibly TA... so TA2 already saw. So we said by Aaron, the Hikar of Aaron as part of Chatas Shalo, Mishlo, and it can come from Meiser. And TC5, unfortunately, I got wrong. TC5, TB5, I did. Mahamarker, same thing. We went out from Aharon, okay. No other question there. It was TC29, which I got wrong about the Miluyim. What exactly does it mean? Meiser is not Lasreifa, so it means im hifer shtei karbanos lachrayis who adayin chai lo yisrafu. All right, Ella, as it says, what you're supposed to do is Rashi brings it down. Ella yira'eh yud resh ayin hey until it gets a mum. Okay, that's the end of that parak. We're going to continue with the 9th parak, Kol Karbonos Atzibur B'Hayachid. When it comes to all Karbonos, Boyin Min Haaretz, Mechutz La'aretz, Min Hachadash, Min Hayashan, Adkan.